Commander Zeth Kalar was an old warrior. He had fought in 3 big wars across the galaxy. His hard-shell body showed many scars from battles. His 4 eyes had seen terrible things that would make other aliens go crazy. But now, as he stood, in the big meeting room of the Galactic Council, his voice shook with fear. This was something no one had ever heard from the famous fighter before. The meeting room was huge and round. Representatives from hundreds of alien worlds sat in rows that went up to the ceiling. At the center was a floating platform where Zeth Kalar stood. His 6 legs clicked nervously on the metal floor. "Council members," Zeth Kalar began. A small device on his chest changed his clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. "I am here to warn you about something very dangerous. The humans should never have been allowed to fight with us." The human group sat near the front. Ambassador Lisa Martinez felt sick to her stomach. She knew what was coming. Next to her, General Paul Johnson sat very still. His old face showed nothing, but inside he was worried. "The humans fight in a way that is wrong," Zeth Kalar said. His voice got louder. "They do not just want to win. They want to break their enemies so badly that giving up seems like the only choice." Quiet talking started all around the room. A blue-skinned alien from the Vorton worlds leaned forward. "Commander, you talk about humans like they are monsters, but they are our friends. They help us." Zeth Kalar's mouth parts clicked very fast. This meant he was very upset. "I fought next to them at the Battle of Kepler 442. I thought I knew about war. I thought I understood fighting. I was completely wrong." The room became very quiet. Everyone could see that the old warrior was scared. "They do not fight with honor like we do. They fight with numbers and cold thinking." Ambassador Martinez looked around the room. She saw fear in many alien faces. Some were whispering to each other. Others just stared at Zeth Kalar with wide eyes. "Tell us what happened," said the chief judge. She was made of living crystal and was very old and wise. Her voice sounded like music. Zeth Kalar's whole body shook a little. "It was 6 months ago. My fleet was fighting against the hegemony forces. They were bad aliens who wanted to take over peaceful worlds. We thought we were winning." He stopped, talking for a moment. His 4 eyes looked at different parts of the room, but they seemed to see something else. Something from the past. "Then the humans came to help us. Just 1 ship at first. We were happy to see them. We thought they would fight beside us, like good allies do." General Johnson shifted in his seat. He remembered getting the reports from that battle. He had been proud of Captain Morrison and his crew. "The human ship was called the USS Relentless," Zeth Kalar continued. "Captain Jake Morrison was in charge. He seemed like a normal human officer, polite, professional. But then, the fighting started." The old warrior's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like machines that had learned to think." An alien from the Zephyrian Empire stood up. He had green skin and long arms. "Commander, all species have their own ways of fighting. What made the humans so different?" Zeth Kalar looked at him with his 4 eyes. "They studied us. Not just our ships and weapons, but our minds. They learned how we think, what we fear, what makes us give up hope." The room was completely silent now. Even the quiet talking had stopped. Before the battle even started, they knew exactly what they were going to do. They had plans for every possible thing that could happen. They had studied the hegemony forces for weeks. They knew where every ship would be, how fast they could move, what weapons they had. He paused and looked directly at the human delegation. But that was not the scary part. The scary part was that they had also studied us. Their allies. They knew how we would react to what they were about to do. Ambassador Martinez felt her hands getting cold. She knew the full story of what happened at Kepler 442. She had read all the reports, but hearing it from an alien who had been there made it sound different, darker. "The battle lasted 4 hours, Zeth Kalar said. "In those 4 hours, I learned that everything I thought I knew about war was wrong. The humans did not just defeat the hegemony. They broke them completely. A small alien with big ears raised her hand. But Commander, if the humans won, that is good, right? The hegemony was attacking innocent worlds. Seth Kalar's mandibles clicked sadly. Yes, child. The humans won. But the way they won will give me nightmares for the rest of my life. He looked around the room at all the different alien faces. Some looked confused. Others looked worried. A few looked angry. The humans have turned war into a science. They do not fight with passion or anger, like we do. They fight with math and cold logic. They calculate exactly how much pain to cause, exactly how much fear to create, exactly when their enemies will break. General Johnson finally spoke. His voice was calm and steady. Commander, we fight to end wars quickly. Every day a war continues means more people die. Seth Kalar turned to look at him. General, that is what makes it so terrifying. You are not evil. You think you are doing the right thing. But your methods... The old warrior's voice trailed off. He seemed to be remembering something that hurt him. What methods? Asked the chief judge. Seth Kalar took a deep breath. They made us watch. They made us calculate our own defeat. They showed us exactly how helpless we were, exactly how the battle would end, exactly how many of our friends would die if we kept fighting. The room erupted in shocked gasps and angry voices. Some aliens stood up and started shouting. Others just sat in stunned silence. Order, called the chief judge. Her crystal body glowed brighter. We will have order in this chamber. When the room became quiet again, Seth Kalar continued. The humans won the battle in the first 10 minutes. Everything after that was just them proving to us that resistance was pointless. He looked directly at Ambassador Martinez. That is what makes them so dangerous. They do not just want to win. They want their enemies to understand completely that they never had a chance to win at all. 3 months before the trial, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the USS Relentless. He was looking at the big screen that showed enemy ships all around them. His crew was busy at their stations, but they seemed calm. Calm for what was about to happen. The hegemony had 3 ships for every 1 human ship. Most captains would be scared. Morrison looked almost bored. He drank coffee from a white cup and watched the enemy ships move into position. Amy, how are our weapons? Morrison asked his weapons officer. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster checked her screens. She was young but very good at her job. All weapons ready, Captain. We have full ammunition. Railguns are working perfectly. Missiles are loaded and ready to fire. Morrison nodded slowly. Good. Tommy, move us to attack pattern Delta 7. The pilot, Lieutenant Tommy Clark, looked surprised. Sir, that will put us right in the middle of their formation. That's exactly where I want us, Morrison said quietly. On the big hegemony flagship, Commander Seth Kalar watched the human ship with confusion. The small human vessel was flying straight toward the center of his fleet. It made no sense. It was like watching someone run into a fire. The humans must be crazy, said his second-in-command, a young warrior named Kethvar. They are flying to their death. Seth Kalar was not so sure. He had heard stories about human tactics, strange stories that seemed impossible to believe. Open a channel to the human ship. The communication officer, a nervous alien with shaking hands, opened the channel. Channel open, Commander. Human vessel, Seth Kalar said into his microphone. You are outnumbered 3-1. Turn around now and we will let you leave safely. This is your only warning. The answer came back immediately. Morrison's voice was calm and friendly, like he was talking to an old friend. Thanks for the offer, Commander, but we're here to work. Work? Seth Kalar was confused. What kind of work? The kind that ends wars quickly, Morrison replied. Then everything changed. The human ship opened fire, but not the way anyone expected. The first shot hit the flagship's shields in exactly the right place. The shields flickered and died. The second shot hit the engines. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to make the ship slow and clumsy. The third shot destroyed the communication array. In less than 30 seconds, the most powerful ship in the hegemony fleet could not move fast, could not talk to other ships, and could not protect itself. Zethkalar stared at his screens in shock. How did they know exactly where to hit us? His weapons officer, a big alien with red skin, tried to return fire. Our weapons are not responding, Commander. They hit our weapon control systems too. On the bridge of the Relentless, Morrison watched. His screens like a teacher watching students take a test. Amy, move to target 2, same pattern. Sir, Amy said, the flagship is disabled. Should we destroy it? Morrison shook his head. No, signal the fleet. Tell them their commander is alive and watching. Then we continue with the demonstration. Demonstration? Tommy asked. Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Yes, we're going to show them something they've never seen before. We're going to show them what happens when humans really try to win a war. The human ship moved to the second hegemony vessel. Again, the shots were perfect. Shields down, engines damaged, weapons destroyed, communications cut. The ship was left, floating in space, helpless but alive. Then the third ship, then the fourth. Each time the pattern was the same. The human ship knew exactly where to shoot. Every shot had a purpose. Every hit was planned. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. On the flagship, Zethkalar watched in growing horror as his entire fleet was taken apart piece by piece. They're not fighting, he whispered to himself. They're performing surgery. Kethvar was trying to understand what was happening. Commander, how do they know our ship designed so well? How do they know exactly where to hit us? Zethkalar had a terrible feeling in his stomach. Because they studied us. They learned everything about our ships before the battle even started. But how? When? The old commander looked at the screens showing his disabled fleet. Remember last month? Those human trade ships that visited our space stations? The ones that seemed so friendly and wanted to learn about our culture? Kethvar's eyes went wide. You think they were spies? I think they were researchers, Zethkalar said quietly. And now they're using what they learned. On the Relentless, Morrison was talking to his crew. Analysis complete. All enemy vessels disabled. 0 casualties on either side. Mission parameters achieved. Amy looked at her captain with respect and a little fear. Sir, how long did we spend studying their ship designs? 3 weeks, Morrison said. We had complete technical specifications on every ship in their fleet. We knew their weaknesses before we got here. And they never suspected? Morrison sat down in his captain's chair. Amy, that's the difference between us and them. They fight with their hearts. We fight with our heads. They plan for today's battle. We plan for next year's war. The communication officer, a quiet man named Pete, looked up from his station. Captain, the hegemony commander is trying to contact us. Put him through. Zethkalar's voice came through the speakers. He sounded tired and confused. Captain Morrison, what do you want? You have won. Our fleet is destroyed. Not destroyed. Commander, Morrison said. Disabled. Your crews are all alive. Your ships can be repaired. Then what was the point of this demonstration? Morrison was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. The point, Commander, is that you now know something you didn't know an hour ago. What is that? You know that when humans decide to fight, the outcome is not in doubt. The only question is how much damage everyone takes before you realize you've already lost. The bridge of the Relentless was completely silent. Even Morrison's own crew looked uncomfortable. Commander, Morrison continued, you can rebuild your ships. You can train new crews. But you will never forget what happened here today. And neither will anyone else in your fleet. Zethkalar's voice was barely a whisper. What are you? Morrison looked at the screen showing all the disabled enemy ships. We're problem solvers, Commander, and war is just another problem to solve. Back in the big council room, Zethkalar continued his story. His voice was getting weaker, like telling this story was making him tired. All the alien representatives were listening carefully. Some looked scared, others looked angry. After Captain Morrison disabled our ships, Zethkalar said. We thought the battle was over. We were wrong. The real attack was just beginning. Ambassador Lisa Martinez felt her hands getting cold. She knew what was coming next in the story. She had read the reports, but hearing it from someone who lived through it made her feel sick. What happened then? Asked the chief judge. Her crystal body was glowing softly, showing she was very interested. Zethkalar's 4 eyes looked around the room. The humans began broadcasting on all our communication channels, not threats, not demands for surrender. They started sending us information. A small, furry alien from the Korvash system raised her hand. What kind of information, Commander? Numbers, Zethkalar said quietly. Terrible, horrible numbers. He walked slowly across the platform. His 6 legs made clicking sounds on the metal floor. First, they showed us exactly how our battle formations worked. They had studied our tactics for months. They knew every move we would make before we made it. General Paul Johnson shifted in his seat. He remembered approving those intelligence reports. At the time, it had seemed like smart military planning. Then they showed us our supply lines, Zethkalar continued. Every supply ship, every fuel depot, every repair station. They had mapped everything. They knew where our food came from, where our weapons were made, where our families lived. The room became very quiet. This was more than just military information, this was personal. But that was not the worst part, the old warrior said. His voice was shaking now. The worst part was the predictions. Predictions? Asked a tall, thin alien with blue skin. Zethkalar nodded sadly. They calculated exactly what would happen if we kept fighting. How many ships we would lose each day. How many soldiers would die each week. How long our food would last. When our ammunition would run out. He stopped walking and looked directly at the human delegation. They showed us mathematical proof that we had already lost the war. They proved it with numbers that we could not argue with. Ambassador Martinez wanted to explain, to make it sound better. But she knew that anything she said would only make it worse. The broadcast lasted for 6 hours, Zethkalar said. 6 hours of cold, hard facts about our defeat. They showed us graphs and charts, and calculations. They explained exactly how our civilization would fall apart if we continued to fight. A voice from the back of the room called out, "But those were just guesses. Numbers can be wrong." Zethkalar turned toward the voice. "That is what we thought, at first. So we checked their math. We had our best scientists and strategists look at their calculations." The room waited for him to continue. Every number was correct. Every prediction was accurate. They had not guessed about anything. They had calculated our defeat with perfect precision. The chief judge leaned forward. "Commander, did the humans give you a chance to surrender?" "Yes," Zethkalar said, "but not in the way you think. They did not demand our surrender. They made us ask for it." "I don't understand," said a representative from the Draxan Empire. Zethkalar's mandibles clicked slowly. After 6 hours of listening to the broadcast, my own officers came to me. They had done the math themselves. They showed me that continued fighting would cost exactly 2,147 lives per day. They calculated that our homeworlds would starve in 127 days without supply ships. His voice got very quiet. My weapons officer asked me to surrender. My navigator asked me to surrender. My communications officer asked me to surrender. The humans had turned my own crew against continued fighting by showing them the truth. General Johnson finally spoke. "Commander, we showed you those numbers to save lives. If you had kept fighting, those predictions would have come true." Zethkalar looked at him with all 4 eyes. "General, that is what makes it so terrifying. You were not lying. You were not trying to scare us with false information. Every horrible thing you predicted would have actually happened." The old warrior's voice became very sad. "Do you understand what that means? It means you had studied us so completely that you could predict our future. You knew exactly how we would lose before the battle even started." A representative from the peaceful Zenith Confederation stood up. She looked upset. "This sounds like torture. Mental torture." It was. Zethkalar agreed. But it was also mercy. The room erupted in confused voices. Many aliens started talking at once. Order, called the chief judge. Explain what you mean, Commander. Zethkalar took a deep breath. The humans could have destroyed our entire fleet in the first hour. They had the weapons and the knowledge to kill all of us. Instead, they disabled our ships and kept us alive. He looked around the room at all the different alien faces. They forced us to understand our situation completely. They made us realize that fighting would only cause more death and suffering. Then they let us choose. Choose what? Asked the chief judge. Choose to live, Zethkalar said simply. They gave us the information we needed to make a smart decision. Surrender and live, or fight and watch our civilizations die slowly. Ambassador Martinez could not stay quiet anymore. She stood up. Commander Zethkalar, the hegemony forces under your command were attacking peaceful colonies. Innocent families were dying while you and your allies debated whether to continue fighting. Zethkalar nodded. You are correct, Ambassador. We were the aggressors in that conflict. But your methods... Our methods ended the war in 1 day instead of 1 year, General Johnson said firmly. How many lives did that save on both sides? The room was completely silent. Everyone was thinking about what they had heard. Commander, said the chief judge, do you believe the humans acted with evil intentions? Zethkalar was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was very soft. No. I believe they acted with perfect efficiency. And that is what makes them so dangerous. He looked at the humans again. They do not fight with anger or hatred. They fight with mathematics and logic. They study their enemies like scientists. Study insects. They learn everything about us, then use that knowledge to defeat us completely. But if they save lives and end wars quickly, how is that bad? Asked a young alien from the Tau system. Zethkalar's answer sent chills through every non-human in the room. Because when you fight humans, you are not just fighting their ships and weapons. You are fighting against beings who have already calculated your defeat. They know exactly how you will lose, exactly when you will give up, and exactly what it will cost. He paused and looked around the room one more time. How do you fight an enemy who has already won the war in their computers before? The first shot is fired? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. For the first time in the trial, no one had an answer. The council room was very quiet after Zethkalar's last question. All the aliens were thinking hard about what they had heard. Some looked scared. Others looked confused. A few looked angry at the humans. Ambassador Lisa Martinez knew it was time to speak. She stood up slowly and looked around the room at hundreds of alien faces. Her voice was calm and steady when she spoke. Everything Commander Zethkalar has told you is true, she said. The room exploded with noise. Aliens jumped out of their seats and started shouting. Some pointed at the humans with anger. Others talked quickly to their neighbors. The chief judge had to call for order 3 times before everyone became quiet again. However, Martinez continued, Commander Zethkalar has not told you the whole story. He has forgotten to mention some very important facts. She pressed a button on her tablet. A big holographic display appeared in the center of the room. The images that appeared made even the strongest warriors in the room turn away in horror. The display showed burned cities, dead bodies in the streets, children crying over their parents, entire planets that looked like they had been turned into graveyards. These pictures, Martinez said, show what the hegemony did to 17 peaceful worlds before the Battle of Kepler 4042. They killed billions of innocent people. They destroyed entire civilizations. Zethkalar looked at the images with shame. Ambassador, I was not part of those attacks. My fleet was fighting to stop them. Yes, Martinez said, but you were losing. Your traditional methods of warfare were too slow. While you fought with honor and followed the old rules, civilians were dying every day. General Paul Johnson stood up next to Martinez. His old face showed the tiredness of someone who had seen too many wars. Commander, how long had your forces been fighting the hegemony before we arrived? Zethkalar looked uncomfortable. 3 years. And how many civilian worlds did they destroy in those 3 years? The old warrior's voice became very quiet. 17. And how many worlds did they destroy after the humans joined the fight? Zethkalar was silent for a long moment. None. General Johnson nodded. That's right. 0. Because we ended the war in 1 day. A representative from the Altarian system stood up. She had silver skin and looked very upset. General, you cannot justify mental torture by saying it saves lives. Martinez activated another display. This one showed happy families, rebuilt cities, and children playing in parks. These pictures show those same 17 worlds today. The people are alive. The cities are rebuilt. Children are going to school instead of hiding in bomb shelters. She looked around the room. Every person in these pictures is alive because we ended that war quickly and completely. Zethkalar shook his head. But your methods, Ambassador, the way you study us, the way you predict our every move, it makes us feel like insects under a microscope. Commander, Martinez said gently, would you prefer that we fight wars the old way? Would you rather have conflicts that last for decades, while innocent people suffer? A young alien from the Vega colonies raised his hand. But why do you have to be so thorough? Why do you have to know everything about us? General Johnson answered. Because knowledge saves lives. The more we know about our enemies, the faster we can defeat them. The faster we defeat them, the fewer people die. But it's scary, said a small alien with big eyes. You make us feel helpless. Martinez sat down and leaned forward. When she spoke, her voice was kind but firm. We understand that our methods seem frightening. But let me ask you something. Would you rather face an enemy who defeats you quickly and lets you live, or an enemy who fights you slowly while your people starve? The chief judge spoke in her musical voice. Ambassador Martinez, the council understands that human methods are effective, but many of our members are concerned about the psychological impact of your warfare. Your Honor, Martinez said, we study psychology because we care about ending wars with minimal trauma. Traditional warfare can last for years and leave entire generations with mental scars. Our way is faster and in the long run more merciful. An old alien warrior from the Draconis system stood up. He had many battle scars and looked very wise. I have fought in 7 wars using traditional methods. Each war lasted years. Each war left my people broken and bitter. I lost 3 sons to prolonged conflicts. He looked at the humans with respect. If someone had ended those wars in 1 day, my sons would still be alive. Zethkalar looked surprised. General Corks, you support the human methods? I support ending wars quickly, Corks replied. I support keeping families together. I support methods that work. The chief judge looked thoughtful. Commander Zethkalar, after experiencing human warfare yourself, do you believe humans are evil? Zethkalar was quiet for a very long time. Everyone in the room waited for his answer. No, he finally said. I do not think they are evil. But they are different. Different how? Asked the judge. Most species fight with emotion. We fight when we are angry or scared or proud. Humans fight with their minds. They study war like other species study art or music. Martinez nodded. That's true, Commander. We have turned warfare into a science because we want to be good at ending conflicts quickly. But why? Asked a representative from the Century Worlds. Why are humans so focused on efficiency in war? General Johnson's face became sad. Because we know what happens when wars drag on for too long. We have seen what prolonged conflict does to civilizations. We have experienced it ourselves. What do you mean? Asked the chief judge. Johnson looked around the room. On our own world, we fought wars that lasted for years, sometimes decades. We watched cities burn. We saw children grow up knowing only violence. We learned that long wars destroy everything good about civilization, Martinez added. So we decided to become very, very good at ending wars quickly. We study our enemies not because we hate them, but because we want to stop the fighting as fast as possible. A young alien asked, "But what if you make a mistake? What if your calculations are wrong?" "Then we adapt," Johnson said simply. "But we always aim to minimize casualties and end conflicts quickly." Zethkalar spoke again, his voice thoughtful. "I have been thinking about this for months. At first I thought you were monsters, but now—" "Now what?" asked Martinez. "Now, I think you might be the only species that truly understands war. You understand that the real enemy is not the soldiers you fight against. The real enemy is war itself." The room was completely silent. Many aliens were nodding slowly as they thought about what Zethkalar had said. "The humans do not fight to prove they are strong," Zethkalar continued. "They fight to protect life. They become terrifying so that others do not have to suffer." The Chief Judge's crystal body glowed brightly. "So what is your final recommendation to this council, Commander?" Zethkalar looked at the humans, then at all the alien representatives. "I recommend that we learn from them. Not their weapons or their tactics, but their purpose. They fight not because they love war, but because they love peace." He paused and took a deep breath. "And in a galaxy where real monsters exist, perhaps we need protectors who are willing to become monsters themselves to keep the rest of us safe." The room erupted in discussion as aliens talked excitedly about what they had heard. Some still looked worried, but many seemed to understand the humans better now. Ambassador Martinez smiled sadly. "Commander, we never wanted to be monsters. We just wanted to be effective. And that," Zethkalar said quietly, "might be exactly what the galaxy needs."